Hello, Culture Matters podcast. So today we're going to talk about part two in the culture series, really the hero, or part one of the hero, and part two of the culture series. Here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Far from idleness being the root of all evil, it is rather the only true good. Soren Kierkegaard. Interesting. If you think about that, there are those in the world that say blank space on the calendar it are the devil. I'm going to challenge that idea. I'm going to use Kierkegaard to make a point about the hero, about you listening to this, about me listening to this, all of us as individuals, whether we're employed at an organization, with an organization, or we are the employer. And we'll talk about that dichotomy and the conflicts which arise, and you can decide who you want to be and how you want to be it. As far as the hero is concerned, as far as we are as individuals in the journey to culture and the journey to your best representation of your character, quote, far from idleness being the root of all evil, it is rather the only true good. Blank space on the calendar infers potential, infers your potential as an individual. The reasoning to that statement would be, well, one of what I've been trying to represent through this podcast as a medium of representing myself as an individual, all individuals who've come as guests on the show, and one of the themes of the show, which is, well, of course, culture, but individually the character of those that are demonstrating their culture on the show. If we look at the culture puzzle, hero in the middle of that circle, story on the north, south, mediums, to the east, language, to the west, symbolism, the elements of culture right there in the middle is the individual. And Kierkegaard is attempting to make a point here, quote, far from idleness being the root of all evil, it is rather the only true good. Blank space in the calendar infers potential. Is it the time that you or me or anyone as a hero in our journey, as an individual, can take to rethink a position, to plan, to aim, to look at ourselves, to introspect, to unpack the past, to foresee the future, to be, potentially to be in action or interaction, something that other organisms on this earth either can't, don't, or so on and so forth. This idea that blank space is the devil, I would argue that's backwards. I would argue that if I'm thinking that stopping to reflect is a negative or deconstructive element, is not going to add to my character, that's backwards. That's going to lead to me not being able to see the blind spots that occur as I go on my journey of endeavor as an individual, as a hero in my own life, where I'm facing the unknown. I have the certainties, I have the known that I'm bringing into every encounter with people, with the world. There's this whole vast unknown to me. I'm bringing everything I've come to know into the unknown constantly and attempting to navigate it to grow my life. All of us are heroes in our journey. Today, we're talking about the hero. Now, what are some elements that you can take to better to equip yourself for this journey that you are on in life? Well, one of the lessons of Culture Matters podcast has been listening. We're going to write, if you're writing this down, write, like north, south, east, and west, because we're talking about the hero today of the elements of culture. Remember, story, language, symbolism, mediums. We're unpacking hero, which is in the middle. If we're building our hero up, our individual capacity to develop and to develop other people and to grow constructively cultures, businesses, your business, a business you work with, we're going to break the hero into reading, listening, writing, and speaking. So we'll put the hero in the middle. And north, we'll write writing. To the west, we'll write listening. To the east, we'll write reading. And to the south, we'll write speaking. The Culture Matters podcast has been, at this point, generally a representation of me, a hero in my own journey, an individual, interacting with individuals through the medium of this podcast, learning the guest's story, learning the guest's insight, learning the guest's character through what's said and unsaid. If you're listening to the Culture Matters podcast, you're following along with me in an uncontrived dialogue with either a total stranger or a friend or an enemy, someone, somewhere in the middle of that, of unknown interaction to known interaction. Ask questions, hear the responses, and be in an open, curious, intentional state of interaction with the guest to learn more, to listen more deeply, to practice a philosophy of listening, hearing what's unsaid and asking that next question. That's something that has not come naturally to me. It's something that I've intentionally worked on to become a more equipped hero in the journey that is my life. And in the context of, let's say, someone accountable to an organization, the founder of a business, for example, if you also are that or have interest in being that, it arguably is an argument I'm making will help you, like it's helped me, to listen to everyone. And it does seem obvious, commonsensical, yet if you follow along the Culture Matters podcast, you're going to hear me practicing this philosophy, honing the craft of listening at varying degrees of complexity and skill, adeptness, from the very first episode to the most recent. I'm changing, metamorphosizing, evolving from caterpillar to butterfly, ideally. Which one, where in that process I'm at, I couldn't tell you, but you could tell me better than I could tell you. And that's one of the themes here in listening. So listening, reading, writing, and speaking are four elements that Culture Matters, as far as, 30 Days of Thought is concerned. We'll talk about that, a resource to people to be able to hone their own character, develop as individuals, develop as heroes, because the general series that we're working on here, what is culture? Why does culture matter? The individual is a part of that, the hero that we are. If we're talking about a business, there's a founder, and their character is a crucial variable in the company's culture. So listening, reading, writing, speaking, understanding, being aware of, and deciding upon when is appropriate to listen and when is appropriate to speak is an art and a science, and it may be more art than science, but it's been, I'm trying to figure out the scientific piece. The art of it is something that I'm consistently practicing through the Culture Matters podcast. Having someone on the show, having an idea of who I think they are, and then suspending judgment and embracing them and interacting with them through the journey that is learning what it is they know and who they are based on where they've come from and how they have lived and what they have learned and who's impacted them and how they impacted them and what they learned from them and who they didn't align with and why so, and so on and so forth. Listening is a piece of the puzzle of the hero of the overall culture puzzle of what is culture. You as an individual, myself, we have a lot more influence over the places that we are employed by or the organizations that we employ others within, and even this whole dang world, than we may be aware of or give enough credit to ourselves about. So the hero is you. The hero is me. We are individual. Individuals comprise, companies are comprised, if we're going to talk in a business context, of people. How people relate to one another, how people relate to the other parties that help fulfill ultimately product offerings to the marketplace to ultimately help the marketplace, us people again, live their lives in more meaningful ways, as well as materialistic outcomes, right? We need to eat food and we want to feel good about it as we eat it. And so this is a business conversation, also a life conversation. Now, the two mix quite a bit is how I see it, because, well, essentially business is a representation of life and the stage that we as, the human species are at in life's evolution. So listening, if you want to think about listening and learn about listening, firstly, I would challenge you to listen to the Culture Matters podcast, because you're growing with me. Listen to the questions that I ask and how I ask them, and you'll hear what's not clear unless we're thinking about it, which is you'll hear when I want to maybe say something that I instead of pontificating or debating, because it's more of me suspending my own judgments to try to learn about the other person's case. You'll hear that struggle. You'll see when I fail. You'll see when I'm weak. You'll see when I'm strong. And how can you take that into your own life to listen more openly and curiously and deeply with the people that you live your life with at every level: partner, familial, subordinate, authority, whether you own an organization or don't. Listening is a piece of the hero's journey. Speaking. Have you spoken publicly? Have you spoken amongst the crowd? When I'm standing in front of the crowd, it's a vulnerable act when you and I are standing before the crowd. The hero is called to speak before the crowd. Let's take a group of 10 people. And everyone agrees on, and the 10 people are working together towards something. We're going to gather food. In a group setting, if we're successful at the gathering of the food, we're all taking in our collective experience, our collective understanding, or working towards something, we're solving a problem together. At some point, the environment outside of us is going to change. It's like Heraclitus, man never steps into the same river twice. It's neither the same river nor the same man. Life has changed. So something's going to change outside of the group. And someone is going to see the new solution to the current problem that isn't yet understood. There's going to be a leader, someone with a contrary view than the already generally accepted view that has already worked to solve the previous problem, that's going to stand up and say, this is what must be done. Now, that act of speaking up is going to challenge the rest of the group at varying degrees of the challenge and put a strain on the speaker. The speaker is the one. If there's 10 people in a group, there's one person, and it could be more than one, it could be 2 or 3, but the likelihood is going to be a minority of the population of that group that has a view of the new solution to the new problem that is kind of understood and not fully understood, because life is flux and change and things are always changing around us. And in that, there's going to be solutions to problems that aren't actually problems, that are symptoms, or maybe even things that don't even are completely irrelevant. And it's up to the group to filter out what's relevant from irrelevant, which means there's going to be a tension between the minority and the majority perpetually. And it's the person that believes they have a vision to a solution of a problem that's yet to be fully made aware of, understood, and filtered through the group, that is going to burden tremendous stress and conflict. I have a quote that'll make this come to life. Here it is. Quote, "It happened that a fire broke out backstage in a theater. The clown came out to inform the public. They thought it was a jest and applauded. He repeated his warning. They shouted even louder. So I think the world will come to an end amid the general applause from all the wits who believe that this is a joke." Soren Kierkegaard. You know, in that case, you have the leader comes before the crowd to say, hey, there's a fire. We're all going to die. And they're not taken seriously. They're looked at on the surface level as the clown. Now, Kierkegaard is speaking to something, more deep than we're going to get into on this episode from a human's condition standpoint. But just in the context of maybe your life, you might be in a position where you think that you know something other people don't. So if you think you know something that other people don't, one of the ways you're going to test yourself, the marketplace will test you, is you're going to present it before the crowd. You're going to speak before the crowd. So oratory, being able to stand on that stage, or even have this conversation on this podcast, or say something that you think that could challenge, that challenges, inherently it's a challenge. It's what you think. That's a part of the hero, the skill set, the art and the science of publicly speaking, of standing before the crowd, of having something to say that contradicts another or a group, is a part of leadership, a part of the hero that you are in your journey. Us as individuals, we're in an organization, working for an organization, and we think we see an issue in the organization, and we're not, we don't have a title, so we say nothing. Well, the goal of the organization from the top up, the top down rather, is to create a culture where someone at the bottom of the organization hierarchically feels safe and inspired to actually say what they think. The reason that's valuable is because they're closer to the problem, so they'll be able to see it more clearly. Now, it will be that interplay between those at the top of the hierarchy and those at the bottom that gets most clearly to the bottom of the truth, because those at the top may, it's just inference, they may have a level of experience that those at the bottom don't, a level of education, just even the objectivity of being higher up in the hierarchy and seeing the whole chessboard creates an advantage. And the role that those at the top is to communicate that advantage, to create alignment with the roles at the bottom, and the role, as well as the safety for the people at the bottom to be able to want to speak up and feel capable of speaking up, so that generally the problems that arise with building an organization are solved as quickly as possible, to not derail the organization's success. Speaking before the crowd, whether it's amongst your peers in an employee mindset, or whether you're the owner of an organization and it's painting the vision of where the organization is going for your people, is a call to leadership. Someone is going to say something that challenges, that creates challenge, and they're going to have to burden the consequences of saying what they think. And we're all in that boat, whether it's the founders or operating principles of an organization painting that picture, or whether it's the people in the trenches getting their hands dirty, fulfilling that vision, saying, hey, there's an issue right here. Example would be like, comes to mind, that TV show Chernobyl, the people weren't listened to, so look what happened. So listening and speaking, they're at odds with one another, because while you're speaking, you can't listen. Like even right now, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking through me. I'm talking with you, but I'm not getting the feedback from you because I can't even look at you or ask you questions, or so there's even, there's a diminishing return. Everything I'm saying, there's all the contradictions that lie inherent in what I'm saying, speaking of, and this will bring us to our next one, writing. You could really help me, even if you quote unquote, know less or have less experience. You can help because, and this is, we'll get into the comment section value, because ultimately you have the objectivity to be able to see and hear and filter what it is that I'm saying through your lived experience. So that interplay of us is vitally important to continue evolving myself as a hero in my own journey, yourself as a hero in your own journey, and growing a culture, the relationship that we have between us. And that's why I've often said and continue to say that the comment section is valuable, especially if one's putting themselves in a position of speaking before the crowd in the public forum. The comment section is the filter of whatever the person in a position of power is saying, or else. And if without that openness of someone in my position to the comment section, to the critique, to the judgment of the crowd, it's going to create a vacuum where I'm not, the person in my seat speaking isn't essentially can drown in their own creation and their own value, can undermine them. You can't hear the contradictions because the crowd brings the contradictions. And now so that interplay is important. That open feedback loop is important, just like it is in a business between the ownership and the people. Those open feedback loops of communication of what are the problems, where are the problems, how do we solve them together is vitally important. And on an individual level, things that you can do to improve yourself to be the best hero you can be would be to refine the art and science of listening, which we talked about earlier, to speak before the crowd, even just, the act of attempting to do it and being open to that judgment. And now we'll go into the writing piece. See, just like the crowd, it creates the crowd, judging that one that speaks up, saying, oh, this is the problem, this is the actual problem, this is the solution. Their feedback is a helpful, constructive mechanism of refining whatever that thought was. That'll ultimately make everyone's lives better. Writing is that on an individual level. It will help one filter out their thinking. So like, for example, this episode, because I'm speaking ad lib in a sense, this is going to be more, there are going to be more contradictions or a less refined thought than if I sat prior to talking about this and wrote specifically this topic with the subtopics and broke it down into, paragraphs and made an argument. I'm going to be able to, it's going to really, it's going to, that activity forces me to delete and to self-edit, just like the crowd would. I'd be able to see my own contradictions and make more succinct arguments and refine what it is that I'm saying, and then be forced to fill any holes in the argument with examples and stories and so on and so forth. Writing, the point is a medium of refining one's thought to bring before the crowd because the intention could be pure, right? With the intention to help the crowd, help one, and increase the likelihood that the crowd will have the most pinpointed accuracy of whatever contradictions are left that the speaker writer, hero, leader cannot or will not see, to then further refine it. So that's the writing piece. Writing helps us think and critique, to break down, filter the concepts that we are going to bring to life to improve our life through whatever organization we're a part of, whatever world we're a part of. The writing. So listening, that's an interactive, iterative, one-on-one. It's like it's me and you. We're thinking together, we're abstracting together, we're journeying together. It's like, and then the speaking is before the crowd. That's the togetherness. There is the call to action on the openness of hearing the comments, whether that be comments on the social platforms or whether that's just taking questions from the crowd. How we take those comments will create an openness or closeness of whatever that idea is going to be refined as. No ideas stay, or ideas don't seem to, I don't know if it's no, but they don't seem to stay. They just continue to unravel themselves or get refined and sharpened as we continue to evolve. And so the writing piece is how you can self analyze your own concepts, frameworks, and understanding. I think one of the reasons we value authorship so much is, and one of the ironies of course of those that don't author their own books. One of the reasons that I think humans, we all value authorship, we value the book, we take so much from it. It's such a deep level. It's the byproduct of a person's interaction with the world. They wrote that thing. Who did they have to become in the process? What happened to their thought as they wrote it? It was filtered and evolved, and ultimately it saves us all energy to read it, because then we don't have to learn the hard way. We don't have to die in the process, at an extreme. When they haven't, if you're thinking about writing a book and you're not writing it yourself, please rethink that, because we all benefit from the author authoring their book. We are refining our thoughts. We are filtering the bad from the good, separating the wheat from the chaff, and the culture is better for it. And without the authoring of it, the idea is going to be less, period. At every level, it would just be less utility, less meaning for the individual on that journey. So the writing is that self-edit, that self-analysis, that refining process of the hero, of you, of me, of everyone. Whether, you take that as it is, you're journaling for yourself, you're developing some theory to present to the marketplace to be of use, or your job, you're writing your job description, you're putting a plan together for your work, or you're the ownership of an organization putting together the 30-year vision, or the 6-month, down to the quarter, down to the week objectives, the mission, the goals, and the vision, and so on. We've covered listening, we've covered speaking, and I'll say that again, standing before the crowd, whether that's in a public, on a stage, or whether that's just like I'm doing right now, or whether that's really just putting out what you actually think on social media. Be open to the comment section, because that's where you get your thoughts refined. That's where we get our thoughts refined. The refining that we'll do on alone, and the writing. Now, listening to other people, we cover that. Listen to the Culture Matters podcast. There's power in understanding other people. And there's, So the last one is reading. That we'll end on part 1 of the hero today. And we'll talk about the Lyra journey in the next one. In more of a business context. Reading to think. I've always thought reading to think, write to develop, read to think, listen to hear what is unsaid, and speak to let go. That's the basis for the hero growth development in the Culture Matters sense that I've been on this journey myself. Like I said, you can listen to the podcast and hear me listening to hear what is unsaid. I'm doing more speaking now. That's what we're doing right here. And I'm working on the next book that I wrote. The first one, 30 Days of Thought, I wrote it, and I'm writing the next one starting this year. Reading, whether that be, and reading physically is a different medium than listening to an audiobook. Although, however, I found value in both, and I've come across entrepreneurs, especially, that have surprised themselves with how much they get from listening to books, listening to podcasts, people just listening. Ultimately, I'm saying how one approaches it, right? I approach the reading or listening as I'm having a conversation with the author. I'm trying to think of all positions while I'm reading. This may or may not come naturally to anyone, but let's say that I'm reading a book. I'm thinking about. I'm more focused on thinking than I am memorizing the topic. I'm more focused on having that conversation with myself. What does that mean? How does that relate to what I'm up to right now? And even if I'm not doing that, where I'm hearing that, what I just said to you or asked myself with you out loud, that's what's happening. So that listening to thousands of hours of audiobooks has helped me take risks. It's helped me help other people solve problems that they couldn't yet see, discern between symptoms and problems. It's like learning, gathering information and honing the art, honing the behaviorism to discern between what's relevant and irrelevant based on what you actually have going on in your life. I have almost no words to say around it, which is funny. Reading is something physically reading has gotten easier for me over the years because I've made a commitment to do it. Listening to audiobooks as I'm driving or walking on the treadmill or walking around, doing, not talking to a person, has helped me think and gather information that I otherwise wouldn't have access to. And I think if I didn't have access to that information, it would have been difficult, maybe impossible to get into the rooms that I've been able to, been invited to not only stay in them, but to add value in those rooms. Information is energy brought to a situation. We talked about that group of 10 people solving a problem together. There's always new problems, and whoever sees that new problem before it's instantiated in the group as understood and can burden the uncertainty of the group and lead the people to the understanding of the new problem and solve it with the people together, there's going to be a reward, whether that's starting a business and helping clients. It could just go on and on. To gather information, to discern what's relevant from what's irrelevant, to have open dialogue with other people, right? That's where the listening and interacting openly with people and sharing what one thinks and continually refine what one thinks to be of value to other people is I don't see the downside in that. So reading to think, listening to hear what is unsaid, to ask that next question, to go deeper, to learn with other people, gives me, and I would think you, a possibility of saying something new, saying something that could be very useful to everyone. And writing refines that, edits that, increases the power in that phenomenon. And we all do this, whether, at varying degrees, whether we're writing something on the Twitter or the threads or Facebook, we're reading articles, reading textbooks, reading magazines, reading text, we're reading, we're writing. We're speaking more than ever. We have videos that go instantly in any medium through our text, through speaking. It's never been, think about how much access we have to influence and to be influenced and essentially lead. And if we're incapable of leading, that's, I think, ultimately having that openness to feedback, those open feedback loops. If we break them down, I'm scared about the future. If we're not listening, if we're not hearing what's unsaid, if we're not telling the truth, and if we're not strong enough, if I'm not strong enough to handle what you think, I'm eventually going to drown in my own knowledge. It's an infinite regress. Everybody's out for themselves. I'm not thinking I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm actually saying what can happen for you is to listen, to read, to think, to listen to hear what's unsaid, to speak, to let go, and to write, to develop. And those 4 things will help you. I think that because it's helped and continues to help me, help myself, and help those that have given me an opportunity to help them. And from that, our firm, Culture Matters, as an advisory firm, those that we, as a team, we're able to help organizations, help other people, and, solve problems to create value in the marketplace through products and services and all sorts of different industries. And I think there's life lessons in this, that you're a hero. You have responsibility to varying responsibilities in this world. You're accountable to your own life, and reading will give you more information to be able to access and make decisions off of. Listening to other people will help you, as it has me, integrate into society. And speaking, it makes, forces leadership, because people now will follow you, and they'll unfollow you. And I mean that literally in real life, not just follow you on social media, although that's a metaphor for some other deeper conversation we could have. And writing is going to help refine the thoughts that you have, that you're bringing to other people constantly. So these are 4 elements of the hero, and the hero makes up part of the culture puzzle, right? What is culture? Well, it's individuals in the group and how they relate to one another. Story, symbolism, language, mediums. We're talking about the hero today, and I'll leave you with that. And next time we're going to unpack the liar lid journey quite a bit. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.